Superfans are one of those things that I feel like no matter what sport you do, no matter what you do in the world, people are going to talk about superfans. And so I wanted to spend some time to talk about what I think a superfan is, how I define a superfan, and some things that kind of annoy me about superfans. Because honestly, when you're dealing with a superfan, it's almost pointless because they're going to make a point no matter how they have to go about making the point, no matter if the point doesn't make sense if you use it to something else. But superfans are everywhere. I've realized, though, that more superfans live in college football than they do in the NFL, and I don't know why that is. I don't know. Something about college football brings out the most super fandom, so that's always interesting. I'm not here to tell you not to be a super fan. I'm just here to say, hey, you might want to recognize that you are a super fan. If you recognize that you're a super fan, there's nothing wrong with super fans. You just have to realize that you're a super fan, and you have to realize that that might cloud your judgment just a little bit. So what I've put together is a list of 5 things that I feel like makes people super fans that I see very often. For some of you that have been here for a while, or even if you're new here, I'm going to plug my Colorado video up here because I talked about Colorado fandom last year. But now that I'm more in this, now that it's been like a year since I made that video, I thought it was time to really update what I'm seeing and things like that. So let me get into this video. I am not here to talk about the optimistic fan. Optimistic fans, I have no problem with those. The optimistic fan is the fan that usually says, hey, yeah, I know I might be this, but this is what I hope. This is what I feel. This is what I'm thinking. I understand those. I understand optimistic fans. Kudos to you for being an optimistic fan. The first trait of a super fan, if not giving any context, what I mean by that is you will find one little thing in one specific argument in one little thing and make that one thing right. However, if you expand that argument and actually make that argument bigger and actually give more context around the argument, you will actually see that the argument doesn't make any sense. But your intention is to not give any context. Your intention is to be right about the little bitty small thing that you hope makes your team or hopes your player or hope that you hope makes your player seem a little bit better. An example could be if you were looking at a game and you're like, oh man, yeah, but he had 3 sacks that game. Okay, yeah, he had 3 sacks that game, but his 3 sacks were in trash time, garbage time against second string. You see what I'm saying? So we're not, when you're a super fan, you lack context. You don't give context. You just try to make your point and be right in your point. And that is my thing number 1. The second thing is there's always a double standard. There's always one way when it comes to your team, but a complete other way when it comes to another team. You expect other teams to be amazing and be successful and do everything correct. However, on your team, you're okay not doing everything great because you will give your team an excuse as to why they didn't do something right. You think that everything your team does is positive, but you don't think anything anybody else does is positive. An example of this would be you think every team and every player that your team gets is amazing and is the best and is going to reinvent the wheel and is going to break all the records, but you don't think people that on other teams are going to be just as good or break records. You only think good people, good players live on your team, but you don't think those same players live on other teams. The other thing about a double standard that happens a lot is that you can't listen to anybody's perspective about a specific player. So that to me is a double standard because you're not being consistent with how you're looking at things because it lacks intellectual consistency. If you are not consistent with your arguments and if you think one way when it comes to your team, but you can look at somebody else's team and give them a very good critique, that lets me know that you are a super fan of your team. Again, nothing wrong with super fans. You just have to realize that you are a super fan. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to check and make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. And don't forget to turn on those notification bells. Also, if you're feeling generous, leave me a comment in the comment section below. My other thing is going to be, it is only about your team. Only your team is going to be great. Only your team is good. Only your team is getting better. Only your team has the best coaches. Only your team has the best fans. Only your team has the best processes. Only your team has the most innovative. Only your team has the best facilities. Only your team, it's always about your team. Only your team is working hard. Only your team has a championship caliber team. Only your team has the best linebackers. Only your team has the best receivers. Only. That is your battle cry, is anytime you have to start talking about things and you only know about your team, you're naturally going to think that your team is the only. This is why I always say, if you want to actually know how good your team is, compare them to somebody else. But when you're only focused on your team, when you're only talking about your team, of course, it's only going to be about your team. And that is why you're a super fan, because you're spending 0 time learning about what anybody else does because you just think in your mind that your team is going to be better because your team is the only team that matters to you. The other thing is that you can't critique your team. And when you critique your team, it has to come with a caveat. You can't say, yeah, we don't run the ball. You can't say, yes, our defensive line is not very good. You cannot say, yeah, we're not good at tackling. You cannot say, yeah, we're not good on the goal line. You can't say those things. You can't say we don't have good third down percentage conversion ratio, right? Like, you can't say those things because in your mind, everything your team does is great. You can't critique them. But when you do critique them, you always throw in a little caveat. You will always say, yeah, we're not good at this, but we're getting better. Yeah, we can't do this, but this. You always have to throw out a caveat as to why your team is going to be fine and your team is going to figure out, when deep down inside, we don't know what any of these teams are going to do. We don't know if these teams are ever going to figure it out. But because you're such a super fan, you think that your team is all knowing and all world, and they're going to figure out every single thing that you want them to figure it out. You also have to defend your team at every turn. Even when people are on your side and are supporting you, everything feels like an attack. Every time somebody says something about your team that sounds a little off, you assume that they are attacking your team. The one thing about being a super fan that I have learned from people is no matter if you're on their side, no matter what you say, you are not allowed to criticize their team. You're only supposed to nod your head and say, absolutely, they're so great. You can't give critical feedback. You can't say what your team is seeing, or you can't say what you're seeing. You can't say anything about how you assess situations because how you assess situations actually does not matter. The last thing I will say is everyone is against you. Every single person is always against your team. It is your team against the world. Your team is full of conspiracy theories. Your team is doing this because the system is against your team. The refs are against your team. College football is against your team. Everybody is against your team. Everybody is against you. It's you versus everybody else. Come on. That is such a super fan thing. Like we assume that our teams are like bigger than lives and our teams are like the most important. But the reality is they're actually not. Okay. We're all just teams. Some teams get more publicity than others. Some people have more higher rated players than others and things like that. I got it. But come on, let's stop with that. I want to conclude by saying this. I am a Texas Longhorn fan, I'm a Colorado Buffaloes fan, and I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I will not now or ever be super fanned out when it comes to my teams. And I like to be objective. I also like to be intellectually consistent. If you are a super fan, here's some things to look out for. And if you are talking to or debating with a super fan, you should know that you're never going to win, because one thing about a super fan is a super fan has to defend their honor, and the defending the honor is actually defending the team. They feel like they have to defend their team. I don't know why, but that's just how this works. So just to recap, not giving any context would be number 1. Having double standards would be number 2. The only us mentality is number 3. You cannot critique your team is going to be number 4. And everyone is against us is going to be number 5. The most important thing about all of this is I'm not saying you can't cheer for your team. I'm not even saying you can't defend your team. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't be a super fan. Be a super fan. Cool. Do the thing. However, just realize you're a super fan. And if you were in an argument with a super fan or in a debate with a super fan, remember what they're trying to do, or remember what their intentions are. Their intentions are not your intentions. Those are my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you in my next video.